So we are recording. Giving it a second for the live stream on YouTube to kick on again. It is starting. So, all right. So, everybody out there in the internet land, you are looking at Mr. Keith McGuire. And Keith, would you want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi, how are you? I'm Keith McGuire. I teach watercolors, and today we're going to do a sunset. So, if you guys are ready, you're going to have to put up with my live attitude too. So, I'm going to begin by wetting the top half of my painting, which is going to be the sky. Now, I'm not going to paint the entire thing all at once or wet it all at once. I'm just going to wet what I want to paint first. And that is the sky. So this painting is going to be more or less a seascape. So we're going to be looking at a sunset sky with some lava rock and some sand in the foreground. And a little bit of ocean. Forgot about that. But right now I'm just wetting the sky. I want to get enough water on here to make the paint slide on easily. All right, so put a little paint in earlier, in the tray earlier. This is a cadmium light. Ooh, I missed a spot. Live. All right, yeah, give me a sec here. Let's make sure I got everything. Okay. I want to make sure my horizon's nice and straight too. Hate when them horizons slip off, fall down.
So real quick, Keith is using Schminke's brand pan paints.
Yay!
He's got his Lowell Cornell brush, I'm assuming still.
Well, this is a Lowell Cornell, I believe. I can't see.
Oh, he's had it so long he's rubbed off the branding.
Yeah, kinda. But I do believe this is. This is the brush I like to use. It's got a nice point on it, but I also like it for putting a good amount of water on the paper. So
and what kind of paper is it?
Now this is 140-pound cold press Arches watercolor paper.
Okay.
And this paper is wonderful because it's great for professionals, but it's especially great for amateurs because you have the ability to correct things, scrub on it, bead on it. It is a very sturdy 100% rag cotton paper. Let me just, it's wet. I got the water kind of soaked in a little bit. So I'm going to apply a heavy dose. Well, I don't believe that's the term, but a heavy coat of yellow, this cad yellow, right at the horizon line. And what I'm going to do is tip the paper up and let it kind of bleed up. I don't want, so I'm going to have a very bright sunset. I don't want it to be all one color though. I'm going to have some pinks and blues and a few other things. So what I want to do is I want to get my base coat of yellow in first. Yellow being the lightest color that I'll be applying. So you tell me how this is going to work with lifting.
You can always lift a little bit. Just
Can you see?
I can see it.
Okay, good. Live. So we have to experiment with our cameras a little bit, have a little fun here. Mm-hmm. So as you can see, I lifted it up a little bit so that I can let the paint kind of go towards the top of the paper, but not completely go all the way to the top. So, come on. It's taking its time. All right, very good.
No hurry.
All right, very good. So, at this point, I'm now going to take a wee bit of my crimson, and I'm going to mix up kind of an orange using my cad yellow and the crimson. So I'm going to just kind of orange up the sky. So we got the bright yellow at first. Now taking a little bit of orange, I'm going to apply some of that a little higher up. And I'm just kind of plopping it along. Another.
Now this is sky, right? Not dead grass.
Yeah. Hang on. Just hang on. It'll all become apparent. Is that... Oh my God. Is that dead grass in the sky? All right. Very good. All right. So you can see I've got my bright yellow at the bottom. I've now kind of come up a little bit with an oranger cast to the sky. I'm just going to add a little bit more, I think. Now, I have kind of sketched out a little bit what my clouds are going to be doing, okay? So, I can see it, and I kind of recommend that you kind of plan what you're going to do. You just, some people can run off and be willy-nilly about their painting, but I feel that if you're kind of new at it, try to give yourself something to go by so you don't end up disappointed or starting over again when you don't quite get what you think you wanted. How's that for a term? Okay.
That's good. I will be right back. You just keep doing what you're
All
doing.
right. Where are you going?
I need to grab my phone.
Nice. You're going to go get some food, aren't you?
Yeah, pizza.
Yeah. All right. At this point, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add just the crimson itself. This will be a little higher again. As you can see, it doesn't all have to be evenly across. In fact, I recommend that it isn't. I find that to be slightly boring. Okay, so don't be afraid to use the color. I'll be honest with you. Well, it's not like a grave secret or anything, but watercolors do dry about 40% less value when it's dry. It always looks great wet. Watercolors always look great when they're wet, but you got to kind of plan on the fact that they're not always going to be as bright as when you apply the paint. All right. You know what's fun is not having a foil to bounce ideas or thoughts off of. All I got is you guys. All right. I am going to punch up each of these little colors and areas just a hair more here and there, just so I get the feel. I want more water. I'm sorry if you can't see this. It's only I have to lift this a little bit, give it the opportunity to flow towards the top of the paper. All right. So now I can come back. I'm just going to push a little bit of this orangey color back in again also while it's still wet. I just kind of want it to blend right into that pink a little bit. All right. Very good. So just, pick it up and let it move a little bit. Watercolors, it's the only medium that that you can do this, that you can, let the paint do its own thing. So, how was lunch?
It was delicious.
Yeah, nice. You said you were going to bring me something, didn't you?
Oh, I ate it in the car.
Yeah. I was afraid of. All right, now, like I said, as paint dries, you do get the opportunity, if you need to go back in a little bit, go ahead and maybe punch it up a little bit while it's wet. Now, what sets the color in a watercolor, especially if you're using the right paper, rag cotton paper, is you let the thing dry completely. That is what sets the color. If you do not let it dry completely, you'll get a thing called a bloom. And what that is Basically, you'll put some paint down or water into your painting, and it'll all push to one side. So what you want to do, you'll end up with these kind of poofs. Sometimes you can make them work, but more often than not, they get to be kind of a problem. So what you want to do is, if you find your paper getting a little too dry and you're getting blooms and the paint's not moving anymore, what you want to do is let it dry. Let it dry completely, but you can always go back, re-wet it again because the color's already been set. You can re-wet it again and continue on, okay? So at this point, I am going to start painting from the top down. I want a little bit of blue. That kind of sunset, the dark color coming in after, after the brighter colors, the yellows and the reds. And so I start this at the top. And what I'll be doing is kind of lifting the paper again. I want some dark up here. So don't forget that it's going to dry lighter. So don't be afraid to punch a little color in here if you need to. All right, cool. So I'm going to lift it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bleed some of that blue down into the cloud. All right. And now I'm going to bleed some of the pink back into the blue. We'll get a little bit of violet. We'll get a little variety of color here going.
Which blue are you using again?
Oh, I'm sorry. That was Schmincke's Peacock Blue, okay? Which is, I would say, not Peacock Blue. I'm sorry. Schmincke's Cerulean. I kind of lost my mind there. Okay. Live. All right. So, yeah. So it's a little bit on the brighter side than a lot of companies' cerulean blues. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend, if you're using Holbein paints, I would recommend the Peacock Blue. I think of the other companies that I would possibly think of using I would use Phthalo Blue, okay? Because like I said, I really feel that the Schmincke's Blue isn't quite a true cerulean. Sure is pretty though. All right. So I think I'm going to have to let this guy dry a little bit. Okay. So if you're wondering if I'm leaving or not, the answer is no. What I'm going to do is work on the sand below. Okay. So I'm going to let this dry. As it dries, I'm going to kind of keep an eye on it, see what it does, if I need to do anything to it. Actually, one more shot of blue, I think. I'm going to put it right up here. I'm just going to let it kind of bleed around a little bit. Whee! All right. And we're going to let that kind of... All right. So, at this point, now our sand is going to probably have a slightly rosier color to it. So I'm going to use a Naples yellow. I'm going to mix that with the hey, what's that called? Darn. The crimson. Okay. I'm just gonna, so right now we got a peachy pinky color. Let's try it out. So I'm just doing a little bit around my rocks. So the rocks I have are actually lava, and I'm kind of used to painting lava.
You are?
Yeah, I spent a little time in Hawaii.
Well, I know you did, but when's the last time you painted lava? I might have missed those paintings.
Yeah. Ignore the man behind the screen. Actually, I can't remember. I do some tropical stuff with my other students. He's making fun of me.
Your secret stuff.
Yeah, my secret.
Keeping all the good stuff to yourself.
Yeah, we're with my students in Saline, Michigan. They get all the good stuff. So as you can see, I'm mixing a wee bit of brown with this kind of peachy color. Now, at this point, I don't know if you noticed, I didn't really wet the paper this time. The reason I didn't do that is because I'm using the side of my brush to create a little bit of texture. If you'll notice, I'm not hitting every bit of the paper. And what that does is gives me a little variety of color. And I like having a little bit of white in there so that I might possibly fill that with another color. So at this point, I'm going with my peachy brown, crimson, Naples yellow color.
Of course.
Yeah. And you guys all know what I'm talking about, right? Because we all use it for any number of amazing peachy things. All right. You're no help. All right.
That's just peachy.
Thank you. All right. Now you are a help.
There you go.
All right. So, am I still on screen?
You are. You're good.
Okay. I haven't fallen off.
Nope.
All right. So, I also am giving a little bit of movement to the sand here by kind of, instead of coming straight across, I'm kind of arcing it up towards the little space between the little lava rocks near the ocean itself. So I'm trying to give it a little texture and a little bit of movement. Wow. Hey, that's cool.
It's so pretty.
It is. I didn't do it on my. I do practice. Yeah, I don't just whip these out. I do practice a little bit. I admit it, but quite honestly, every time you do a watercolor, they're going to be different. And I think that's half the fun of watercolors, is that I'm able to, I could do the same subject matter 3 times, I'll get 3 different paintings out of it. Just the amount of water, the paint, it's amazing what you can come up with every time. I also very strongly believe in I believe in
Equality for all.
no, I had a point. It's gone.
Oh, wait, you don't believe in equality for all?
No, not anymore. Equality of color. Wow, you are talking about equality for all. No, dang. Live. Let's put him in his place. All right.
Just keeping on your toes.
Yeah. We can go back and look at this, right? And then we could add, like, you could just go over and say something at some point, right?
I'm gonna practice talking in your voice.
Yeah.
So when we do this, people can't tell who's talking, if it's me or you.
And then you can replace me, right? Be done with him. It's really hard working with artists. It'd be much easier if I could just do it myself. And all right. So as you can see, by not wetting the entire thing, but using a good wet, loose approach and working kind of quickly, I've managed to create some movement in the paint itself, leaving some lights and some darks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of assume the sand is a little bit damp too, a little bit damp. So I'm going to add a little more of the kind of golden yellows. I'm using the Naples again with a little bit of the crimson, but I don't want to just do a coat over top. I'm doing almost the same thing I did last time. That is just kind of pushing color in, having a little fun with it. So this was the painting you wanted over your couch, right?
Yeah, if you can make that about
that
4
big,
feet
yeah,
wider.
exactly. Yeah. And I don't want rocks.
Hey Keith, real quick.
Yeah.
Pat is watching from home, and she asked if you could mention what brush you're using again.
Oh. Darn. All right. No. No, I can't.
Well, we're pretty sure it was the Lowell Cornell.
It is a Lowell Cornell. We know that for sure.
Is that the Flora?
It's a Flora brush, okay? And it's a 10. And if you can see...
Yeah, keep it for that camera from the ceiling. No, turn it so they can see it, though. There you go.
Right here?
Yep, perfect.
All right, as you can see, it's almost like a flat, and yet it comes to a point. And it fills up with a lot of water or a lot of paint. So you can go a long way with this thing, but at the same time, you can do a very fine line with this particular brush. I really like this. This was a gift from Ann Steinmetz, and we have mentioned it on other videos, and it really is kind of fun to work with because, like I said, I can get some broad strokes by using the side of the brush, or I can go all the way to a very narrow, well, let's put some paint in it, all the way to a very narrow line, very fine line if I want to. And but I don't want to in this one particularly. All right, so.
And after this live stream's over, Pat, I will get around to putting links to where you can find the brush, the paper, the paints, any of the goodies in the video. So,
are you telling me that I don't have to be doing this live? That
well, no, we're recording live so we can answer questions from people like Pat when they have them.
Oh, okay, all right.
And then afterwards, I'll have to go back through and do all the hard work of rewatching you paint so I can fill in.
Nice. All right.
All the other information. Unless you want to next time tell me what you're going to use in advance.
I could do that.
And I could have it out there. So.
Then I'd have to kill you.
But being that this is our first live stream, I'm hoping the viewers are a little forgiving in the rough edges.
Yeah, and believe me, we got rough edges. All right. So, as you can see, I've put a little bit of that golden color down now. And it really does help kind of brighten the sand, rather than it's, white or brown. Let's have a little bit of life. And as you can see, what I do is I work from light to dark. And I just keep applying color. But at the same time, I try very hard not to put it on very evenly, because like I said, it'll take away from that texture that we're trying to achieve on the paper. I like the thing of light and dark, kind of reflective. All right, how's my sky coming? Ooh, that's weird.
It's so pretty.
Yeah, and I love what the water does. I let the water do things. Ooh, pretty.
Yeah, see?
Yeah. Yeah, he's just showed me what it looks like on a phone, and I'm glad to see the color does show up very well. So I have this beautiful little strip of purples, pinks, yellows, all kind of blending together. I like how the white kind of comes. This is water, basically, bleeding up from the pink there and pushing into the blue. And it just gives you such a diversity of color. Now, what makes this a little more interesting, and it's not quite time yet, we can't quite do it, is we're going to put darker value clouds over top of this bright, pretty colors. And that's what's going to give this painting, the sky rather, not the painting, a lot of depth then. We will need the darker values to do that. But I'm babbling. I'm going to go ahead. I can't do much anything here until it dries. I can't do anything here till it dries. We're live, and I'm not going to just stand around. And so
let's let it dry for a second. Give you a little leeway. If anybody's got any questions, we've got a handful of viewers, which we appreciate. We weren't expecting any today, being it's our first one, and we didn't even announce it or anything. Yeah. I did post it online when I ran upstairs. That's why I wanted my phone so I could put it out, just to let a few people know that we were doing it.
People.
All
right.
English is my first language.
And we're ready.
But again, so while I'm waiting to see if any questions come in, while we're waiting for the paint to dry, real quick, we'll just go over, because the people that are tuning in now did not hear. Again, Keith is using a Lowell Cornell. It's a Flora brush, number 10. It's got the nice fat base, nice fine tip.
Yep.
He's got his, let me switch camera angles. He's got his Schminke pan paints. Keith is a big fan of Schminke. He likes the pan paints more than the tube paints. The pan paints, the Schminke brand specifically, they're 100% pigment, if I remember correctly.
Well, according to me,
according
Keith
to
McGuire,
Keith,
yeah.
yes.
I don't know if it's, well, let's put it this way.
There's less fillers than
there's no fillers.
Okay.
So I guess it is pretty much 100% pigment. Whereas a tube paint would have, gum arabic, the other materials that make the paint actually flow. The trouble with that, though, is it lowers the amount of pigment that you're using. So when you use a good pan paint like Schminke's, you're working with pure color. So I have to admit, a tray like this could last me a couple years. Just maybe not all the colors. Some colors I'll use up more than others. But it's just so much more pigment. And look at you get these beautiful colors. It's just a beautiful paint that I enjoy. Tube paints, though, if you're, because they're pricey. They're a little bit pricier than, you want to really commit. If you're going to do, watercolors and you're committed and you're like, I'm happy, I'm going to do this, then work your way up, till you can get a nice pan set from Schminke's. I like, for tube paint, I like Holbein, which is a Japanese watercolor, very intense color. I used those for years. I was very happy with them also. So, but there's a lot of good grade paints out there. Daniel Smith also makes a good. I like Daniel Smith. They've got a color for everything. They don't want you to have to mix a color if you don't want to. So it's a very good paint actually.
And then real quick, next to the pan paints in the screen that you guys can see right now is Keith's butcher tray that he uses to mix his paints. Now, you might think it's just a normal old empty pan, but it's an enamel-based butcher tray, which keeps the paint from sticking to the tray. You can use plastic, but what will happen is the plastic will eventually get stained by the color, and no longer will you be mixing your paints on a nice white surface. You're going to be mixing it on a mucky brown, bluish,
or pinkish,
dark,
blue, green thing. Which
will unfortunately affect how you see the color when you're mixing. So don't be cheapy McCheaperson, spend a couple dollars, find a nice enamel tray, use it only for your paint so you don't have to worry about accidentally scratching the enamel. Make sure it is enamel, not
Yep.
paint, not plastic.
Right.
That's the tricky part. Most major art supply stores should have an enamel based one.
Yes.
I'm not so much on your local Michaels or Joann's. They may or may not. You'll have to check locally. But your Blicks and your Ultrex should have an enamel-based one in stock. If not, they can surely get it for you. Or we'll have links in the description below later.
Right. You can get them online.
Yes, online always works for pretty much everything, correct? And then last thing, material-wise, we'll cover once again before we move back on to the painting. Keith is using a Arches cold press 140-pound, correct?
Yes.
Paper. Typically, that's what you'll catch him using in the videos we produce. It either alternates between the 140 and the 300. 300 is for the heavier, more paints going on.
Or more texture. If you want a more textured painting, a paper, they have wonderful diversity of papers. 300 is more textured, but they also have a 300-pound textured rough. So you can get some really, coarse paper too, and it's all good. It's all good paint, all good paper. Yeah.
So do you have any tricks to test and see if the paint's dry before we move on?
Well, what I do, and people, I have very dry hands. I don't have a lot of oil, so I can kind of touch, and I feel pretty good. If you're, use lotions, or you really don't want to be touching your paper. Sometimes you can use, like the back of your hand, just lightly. It's, if it's real cool, it's probably still too damp to, work with. This is getting close. They're both, I didn't put as much water on here, so they're both pretty close. What I'm going to do, yeah, that's it. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to put in my water, the ocean, okay? I'm going to put that in. It's up in here. I'm going to put that in. I think I can, not hit too much stuff, and therefore I should be, pretty good at, and this will dry up a little bit more, and then we'll get on to some of the other, the shadows and stuff, the other clouds, the foreground clouds that are in front of this color.
Wonderful. So as Keith gets back to painting, again, feel free to leave comments, live chat. We are monitoring it as he's painting, and we will take any questions that happen to pop up. Whether we have the right answer or not is to be, debated, but we'll do our best.
Okay, now I'm not wetting this. It's a small area. If it were a bigger area, I would probably wet it. In fact, I know I would wet it because I would want it to move quickly and flow properly. What this does is, it's a small area, so I'm thinking I can get this in before it. What'll happen is if you're a little slow in getting your stuff in, or you're painting and you're leaving like heavy streaks where you can actually see the brush stroke, you're probably too dry, okay? So we want to notice how I don't kind of go all the way across. I work it all the way across, trying to keep it even as I go across. All right, so I'm just adding my yellow, because what we're doing is we are trying to basically kind of copy what we have in the sky. So as I come across here, now there are rocks and stuff in the way, so we're not going to get the entire water line across. So, but as you can see, I started with the bright yellow, and then what I'm going to do is take a little bit of that crimson, or a lot of it, now that I look at it, there we go, and see there's that crimson, that kind of oranges. I added it to the yellow, so I'm going to add a little of that color, a little farther down because it's a more or less a, you know, a reflection we're trying to do. So bright yellow here, this is reflecting this. Then as we come farther up, we have the oranger values. All right. And I'm leaving little streaks of white here and there, mostly because I'll probably use that to make waves, that kind of thing. I'm leaving my shoreline alone, but I am going to try to get just a wee bit of the crimson right close to the shore here, because I want to represent some of that in the sky, that's in the sky. So as you can see, as I'm very close here to the shoreline, I'm putting a little bit of that pink in. Doesn't look like we can, you know, scooch the blue in. He said scooch. All right, so there we go. Cool. All right, so I'm going to let that set up. All right, this is now pretty good. Yes, yes. All right, so what we want to do now is we want to put some foreground clouds where basically they're a little bit closer. The sunset's, you know, the sun's farther back. So these will be, you know, kind of shadowed because, you know, of them being in front of the sun itself. So I'm going to start with some little lower horizon scud clouds. I'm doing this dry because I don't want to get the paper too wet again. Because I'm afraid it'll get all too wet again to work with. Okay, so as you can see, I'm going to continue putting some of this on. I am going to dampen a little bit of it here and there once I get some of it on. All right, so you see how they're a little bit darker than the horizon, you know, the farther back sky here. That's just because they're in front, you know, they're more in front. So, like I said, you don't have to keep it perfectly dry. And we can vary the color a little bit too. So we might get a little more pink going in our foreground clouds here. And clouds, you know, they're kind of nebulous, and so some of it can be lighter, some of it can be darker as the sun penetrates these things. And as we're farther up, as we go farther up and the color changes, then we want the color to change also in the foreground clouds. And that could be like up here, this might be a lot pinker. So I kind of wet that a little bit. I'm just gonna push that pink in. Crimson is what it is, I'm sorry. But when you kind of thin it out, it becomes pinky. All right, so I want the bottom of the cloud to be a little bit darker. Boy. It's like fish or cut bait. I'm having a little trouble with the crimson. There, I'm kind of want to get a little more color in there. I also like to move it around a little bit, just like we did in the beginning. And I don't know, the rest of you, some of you might wonder, why do I have the blue tape around the edges?
Nope, nobody wondered.
No? Here, go ahead, somebody. No, anyway, there is a reason I do it. I like to give myself about 3/4 of an inch to let the framer grab onto something, you know? A lot of people paint right to the edges and then they lose, you know, like a quarter or an eighth of an inch because the framer can't grab a hold of it very well. The other reason I feel that by having the edge, not painting all the way to the edge, you can see I don't have this taped down to a board, okay? So I like to, I just use the tape, and it kind of makes a barrier, and I don't think the paper buckles quite as much when you use a tape like this. The other thing is, I'm kind of weird, and I absolutely love, I'll show you real quick, I love a good crisp edge.
It's so pretty.
The reveal, yeah. So,
okay, so on that note,
yeah.
is there, you're using blue painter's tape, standard blue painter's tape.
Yes.
Should you avoid, like, you wouldn't want to use duct tape,
God, no.
regular Scotch tape?
No.
Because that'll take the paper with it usually.
Yeah, and a lot of times some of them things, the water can get under. God knows why. Some of it can and some of it can't. But the painter's tape, it's easy to get off. No tearing of your paper, that kind of thing. I like the 3/4 inch. I feel an inch, you're taking a lot of paint, you know, you're wasting paper. 3/4 of an inch, I'm not wasting paper. You know, it's that extra, gives it that extra, you know, 1/4 inch on each side. It does make a difference eventually.
Now, when you picked the size to start the painting, did you keep in mind standard frame sizes? I mean, this is for instructional, so, you know, this is more for the viewers at home, but when you typically paint one that you're expecting to hopefully resell.
Or how about frame?
Or frame.
Yeah.
Do you try to stick to a standardized size, or do you just say, you know what, let the framer figure it out?
No. No, you can, no. Yeah, they'll figure it out for you. Yes, that's a very odd size, and I'm afraid we're going to have to charge you for that. Yeah, try to stick to standards. So what you would do is you, you know, you basically would, you know, say it's 8.5 by 11 or 8 by 10, I think is a standard size for frames. You would then make it, you know, 11 1/4. So adding the 2 3/4 of an inch, 11 1/2, I guess. You know, to the sides, you know, so that you, you know, add it, you know, so that you can put the tape down, and then he's got something to grab onto. You in return have a standard size, and they pop them right in, you know, because you can buy, you know, ready-made frames sometimes. I do love going to the framer, in that a lot of times they have some wonderful ideas for matting, that kind of thing. They're pros. I love the people I work with. They absolutely, you know what they're doing. They've been doing it forever. Saline Picture Frame, Saline Picture Frame in Saline, Michigan. They are absolutely wonderful. I have a lot of fun just going and hanging with them, believe it or not. I'm sure they're tired of me, but what the heck, you know? So again, I am coming on the other side here. I'm adding a little more horizon clouds here and there. I don't want to kill all that bright yellow, okay? But I do want it to feel like there's, you know, something rather than just color. All right. I've seen a lot of, I mean, this has got a lot more drama than just blue, red, orange, yellow, you know? This has a little more fun to it, a little more drama. And, oh, I know what drama is, right? You the drama king. All right, so I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to now add,
Dun, 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 dun.
I'm going to take a little bit of my crimson, okay? I'm going to mix a little of it with my cerulean blue that I was using earlier. And what I want is some nice, kind of nice dark areas here and there. Because, you know, clouds aren't that transparent. So I want a few very dark clouds, okay?
Okay.
And you don't need a ton of this, okay? You just need a little bit. A little dab will do you. Because if you overdo it, it can get muddy. Because you do have yellow underneath, and violet and yellow make brown, okay? So that's why I'm putting it in, but I don't want it to get too much. Don't do too much of it, okay? So see that little bit of dark color? Did I bore everybody now?
What? Who?
Have they left or?
Well, we got a pretty consistent viewer base right now.
Oh,
Much appreciated. Thank you to
yeah.
everybody watching.
Both of you.
Yep. We're 2 viewers away from double digits. Oh, 3 viewers. You scared one away.
Yeah, nice. All right. Oh well. Anyway, all right. So at this point, I have some deep values into the sky. I'm looking at the blue up here, and I'm going to make a corporate decision here. I'm going to wet it. Because I'm going to add just a little more color up top. I think it's a little on the bland side. So I'm going to punch this up just a hair. Okay. I'm going to also add a bit of crimson, just to kind of deepen that color a little bit more. As you can see, I'm not going to put it in nice and even. I'm going to kind of break it up a little bit. But I just feel we need a little more value. Just doesn't seem strong enough to me. And that's what you do, you know, you put it down, you look at it, you make decisions, and then you execute. Okay.
Never say execute.
Yeah. Oop, we've lost
Yep, 2 more gone.
Nice. That was uncomfortable. All right, I think that did it. All right, what's left are rocks. Okay, for me at this point, what I want to do is I'm going to use a burnt sienna, which is a very brown, reddish brown, and I like to use color indigo. It's a very dark, deep blue, and since it's lava, it's usually a very blue-black. Now, I'm gonna paint one right here, okay? Real quick.
Yeah, that looks just like a rock.
Yeah, thank you. But what I want to do is I hit it with color, but we are far from being finished with it. If you'll notice, I leave a little bit of light here and there. I hope also you notice that I don't really, this is a mistake that a lot of rookies do, don't outline them, okay? Unless you're quick, okay? So here, I'm going to do a rock. I've seen this done so many times, it makes me crazy. They'll sit there and they'll outline the rock, and they'll wait too long, and then all the rocks have outlines. And that's just, you know, the real world doesn't have outlines, okay? So what we want to do is get the color in, get out, okay? A lot of times what I'll do them in chunks here, very quickly, I hope. And sometimes I'll leave like little lines, little white lines, to kind of separate them a little bit just so I can kind of see what I'm doing. Okay, but I don't have black lines around the pieces. Okay, now I got to be careful I'm not sticking my hands in something. Now the other thing I like to do is I like to break up the color a little bit so it isn't all just one color. Okay, and leave light, leave some areas of light, because everything has reflection, even lava. So right now I'm just kind of putting down a base coat, but I want my base coat, I don't want just one solid clunk of color, okay? Especially when you're working with darks like this. So, sir, how long do we do this?
Well, we're just coming up on about 50 minutes.
Okay.
So I didn't know if you were intending to finish this or if we should pick up, next time.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think this is a good place to stop. I did kind of put a base coat of the darks in on my rocks, but I'm nowhere near where I want to be with these things. This is just kind of getting the base tones down, okay, base colors down, okay? As you can see, I left some white, I left some light, but what you won't see is outlines around my rocks, okay? So, at this point, why don't we draw this to a close? Boy, that sounded nice. And we can pick it up next week, and I'd like to really finish it out, which should probably only take about another 20 minutes.
All right, but so this is going to wrap up this episode of the live stream. We're going to try and do these once a week, hopefully on Mondays. We will start posting on Facebook before we go live, so that if you're already following Keith over there, you can be notified. If you have any subject matter or questions, like I said, leave us a comment, and we will try to answer those. And so some of these live streams they're shortened versions. It's like our normal videos. They're shortened, simplified paintings that we can knock out in a day and turn into a single hour video, or maybe a 3-part hour each video, as they are. Eventually our goal is to turn these live streams specifically into an ongoing larger painting, typically something maybe a 20 by 30 size, something of significant size that it'll take maybe 3 months to finish in 1 hour increments on Monday, but the goal is so that you guys can see the progress as it's happening in real time. No editing, no fuss, no trickery. So you can see exactly what goes into what Keith's doing, and you can be part of the experience, following along, asking questions. Maybe he'll pause and do a technique on a side sheet of paper, something along those matters. We're working out those kinks. If you'd like to find out more about Keith, obviously you're watching the YouTube video right now. It's greatly appreciated. So hit that subscribe button. Give the video a thumbs up, a nice like, and a comment if you enjoyed it. Be sure, again, follow him on Facebook. You can find him at rkmcguire.com. So there's lots of places that you can see what's going on. If you're in the Saline area, Keith does teach classes down there. Links are...
the Salt Valley Arts Center.
Yep. And there's links to that on his website, his calendar of classes.
And also we'll be teaching in the evenings with the News Arts and Antiques. We've got a nice little location there that we're going to also do some painting, drawing, painting, among other things.
Wonderful. And as always, Keith has Prints for sale, so check out the store. Links on his website as well. Prints for sale. We will have originals at some point. And if you use any of the links that I will put out for any of the supplies that were used in this video, we get a small commission. You don't pay any more. It's greatly appreciated. And if not, use the list as a checklist to take to your local art supply center. And with that, we are done for today. Be sure to tune in next week. Hopefully Keith will be back on Monday.
Yep.
We will wrap this one up, and if it wraps up relatively quickly, then we'll roll it over into a little side tip of something else. We'd like to keep these about an hour long. So thanks for watching, and we will see you soon.
Thank you now. Bye.
Now I'm going to leave this camera angle on Keith real awkward for a minute, so just
I can
everybody
go.
stare at him.
All right.
Stop painting. You can't paint anymore. We're turning
come
off the
on.
stream.
I was getting there.